So, obviously, the Buckeyes now 2 games in, and we just saw a total dismantling of Grambling. These games, Dylan, is as obnoxious as they are. Like last year, we had 3 of them. I don't mind them at all when we have that one big one, which obviously we get that big one, stick that big win in the pocket, and now get to go watch, the Buckeyes kind of show out, get to see the youth. And I just kind of wanted to start off with those starters and with obviously Julian Sayin, that performance, that ball placement, the anticipation. What were your thoughts watching that as we've sat here and talked about this guy for 2 years? And I just want to harken back to you talking to Ryan Day last year in the preseason and him telling you, look, he's not far off. Like, he's not far off. That was over a year ago now. And now we're seeing it finally on the field.
Yeah, I mean, he was making waves in camp last year, certainly turning some heads there, while obviously never a factor in the quarterback race, a true factor anyways. He was obviously turning some heads, and it was a very good sign of what was to come. And the things that he, came natural to him. Obviously, everybody talks about the quick release and the way the ball comes out of his hands and just the tightest of spirals you'll ever see. I mean, my goodness, that throw to Jeremiah, the first one, Jeremiah was obviously wide open, but just watching that ball cut through the air was just a thing of beauty. Again, just the tightest of spirals. So those things were obviously things that they saw right away that, weren't going to change. Obviously, he needed more development and just to grow in the mental aspect of things, but those things weren't going to change. And so here we are now, and we're seeing it on the field, and in real situations. And look, going into the game, talking about what you wanted to see, and people were always going to use but it's Grambling, kind of thinking to it. But, I was talking to my dad before the game, like there were certain things that, you can still do or show and put on film as a quarterback that it doesn't matter who you're playing against. When guys are open, once guys get open and Julian sees it and he's just got to, pull the trigger and throw the football, that doesn't, at that point, it doesn't matter who you're playing or who the defender is that's trailing the receiver. It doesn't matter at that point. You still have to make the throw. The throw is the throw. The ball doesn't know that that's a Grambling defender trying to chase a receiver as opposed to a Georgia, defender. And the perfect example of that first touchdown throw to Will Kazmarek, like that throw, at that point, once, Ryan said after the game that as soon as that defender turned his back, that guy's open every time. Yep. And, at that point, it doesn't matter if that defender was a Georgia defender or a Grambling State defender. Like, you still have to deliver that throw. Now you see it, make the throw, and he delivered a beautiful ball. So those kind of things that, are super encouraging to see. I don't care who you're playing against. So it was a tremendous performance. You just see the natural arm talent that made him a 5-star recruit. And again, when you give me that kind of natural talent and you give Ryan Day the opportunity to mold that guy, I'm going to bet on that every time that it's going to work out very well for Ohio State. And look, there's still a lot more to go, a lot more development he has to do, much, much bigger tests coming than what we saw at Grambling. But it has all the makings of being a really, really big time thing Ohio State has going in the quarterback room right now.
Yeah, I don't know that it could have started off any better. That's exactly. Grambling, whatever, man. You got a pass rush coming at you, and you're completing 18 to 19 balls, 20 balls traveling 20 yards or more in the air, which is, those are big time throws. And I was thinking about, his accuracy has always been his calling card. I think a lot of times people put a lot into the release because you can see the release in practice, but his calling card coming out of high school was this just ridiculous accuracy. And that was what we finally got to see on display. He peppers dudes in the face mask all day long. And it's just an uncanny knack. As we look back last year to Will Howard, who was, set the all-time record for most 80% completion percentage games at Ohio State. We're going back-to-back with super accurate quarterbacks. Will had what set him apart kind of being the legs in addition to that, where he could run and pick up that first down. And I think we'll see a little bit of that out of Julian, not as much. But when we look at Julian, I'm kind of thinking that he's going to push the ball down the field a little more than Will did, especially earlier in the first half of the year, where we didn't see a lot of that from Will at all.
I certainly think he has that capability to do that at a level that maybe they didn't have last year. Look, Will was obviously a very accurate quarterback, a lot of the accuracy too was making the right decisions, being willing to take the ball where it needs to go and just taking what's there. And Will was really good at that. And so far through 2 games, Julian's been very good at that as well. Not forcing anything. And that's obviously going to need to continue. So, but yeah, in terms of just driving the football down the field, We've seen a couple of times. Obviously, the throw to Carnell Tate was a little bit underthrown, and even when he hit the Carnell on Saturday, was a good ball. I don't know if it was a great ball, but it was a good ball.
Right.
Just his arm strength and the release and everything, it has all the recipe for a big time downfield, passing attack. And we didn't see a ton of that from Will Howard and Ohio State last year, but it seems like that would be a very big aspect here when the time comes. We haven't seen it yet. And look, frankly, we haven't seen Julian with a lot of pressure in his face either to see how he does there. We haven't seen Julian get hit either. So there are still some things, to still need to see out of Julian. But
For sure.
for what it's been right now, it seems like it's all there. And yeah, I think that the downfield pass game, is going to be a big time thing for them that maybe it wasn't quite so much in the past.
The other day I did 5 guys, veteran players that I'm like way up on, guys that, in some cases I thought, may have kind of hit maybe their ceiling but we're still great players, but have just kind of leveled up a little more in a couple of cases. And in one of those, you just brought him up, Carnell Tate. We've talked about him plenty all off season, how he is so smooth. He's, he doesn't, he's not going to burn you. He's just smooth, always right where he's supposed to be. Got a real knack for getting open and makes the catch, the contested catch. What we've seen in this first couple of games, it's just like, wow, man, this guy is legitimately getting run for the #1 receiver in the country. We all thought he'd have a big year opposite JJ, right? I didn't see it happening like this. Like, he's just that damn good now. It's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, I'll have to admit, I'm talking to you, I think, at some point during camp, I made the comment, or maybe it was late spring coming out of spring, but, making the comment that, like, as everything you just said, Carnell is so solid and smooth, and everything he does is just really good. Maybe he doesn't do any one thing great, but everything he does across the board is good. And there's obviously a future in that in the NFL for, a very, very long career. But maybe I undersold him on that because some of the athleticism he's shown, through 2 weeks has been, really, really good. So maybe I was, while I still expected so much out of Carnell this year, opposite of Jeremiah, with all the attention Jeremiah was going to get, maybe I still undersold that because, Carnell's just he's done it all so far through 2 weeks. Obviously the, showcasing the hands and that touchdown on Saturday, just the acrobatic plays and the athleticism and that Texas touchdown. And then obviously just all the consistency underneath all of those things. So he's showcased the ability to make big plays, and he's going to make all the little plays. He's a smooth route runner. Obviously he has the size to overwhelm smaller guys as well. So yeah, I think maybe I undersold just maybe what Carnell's ceiling was, whereas I thought maybe we'd already seen him reach his ceiling, which is still a very good receiver and a future 12-year pro. Maybe I was wrong about that, happily wrong. We'll see as that continues. But right now it looks like there's still more that Carnell Tate has to showcase.
It's wild, man. I'm right there with you. I think that I kind of thought like this is who he was, and that a first rounder, an NFL, stalwart, but he's now elevated. And I think that the way this has started off this year with him kind of being the showcase piece wide receiver, just how the way it's broken down is probably the best thing long-term this season, because this is just going to be a nightmare. Like it already was for defensive coordinators to try to game plan against these guys. Now that he can make that kind of play consistently, that makes it even tougher. Moving on to a couple of guys on the defensive line. What we've seen so far out of Caden McDonald and Caden Curry, I think has been, I think Caden McDonald is now just rolling into that Tyleek. He's going to be a first rounder type deal, man. He's just, you can't, if you double team and you're not moving him, he's just clogging a big space and you got a big mound of dudes. And that's if he doesn't split that double team. He's unblockable one-on-one. Every one of these goal line stands we've seen, dating back to Penn State last year, he's been the one common denominator in the middle of that line. It's just, it's a different level of play out of him. And Caden Curry bulked up. We've seen him down for sure. I'd like to get a, see how many pounds he's gained. I don't know, but it is visible. They got him playing at nose, and we talked about obviously last year in the Rushman package, bringing him inside, how good he looked matched up against those guards as compared to trying to rush off the edge. And now they're just kind of taking advantage of that. Matt Patricia putting guys where he thinks they'll be most successful, what he does best. All defensive coordinators say that, very few actually do it. He does it, But those two guys, what are your thoughts so far through two?
Well, starting with Caden McDonald, he's been as good as anybody, on the roster through 2 games. Again, obviously still very early, but one of those games was still a massive football game, the kind of football game that you expect to see Ohio State playing in January. While it's only 2 games, one of those, samples is a very, very telling piece there. So, and K-Mac's been as good as anybody on the roster. I think we all understood that Ohio State was going to be fine in terms of what they had up front on the defensive line, in terms of the ones that first group. And the question was depth. I've been impressed with the depth, to some degree. Jury's still out on that. But what I do know is if they can keep K-Mac on the field and Edric and as well, but keep K-Mac on the field for as many plays as possible, that's an All-American. That's an All-American kind of guy, waiting right there. And we talked about Carnell and, maybe what his ceiling was. I knew K-Mac was a very good player. I don't know if I ever would have came away saying like this guy's a potential All-American type player, and so, but that's certainly the start that he's off to. And that's such a thankless position as well, because he's not going to make a lot of these flashy plays that, that are going to get some of that attention. But for anybody who's actually paying attention to the football that's being played, he's been as good as probably anybody out there at the position so far this season. And as far as Caden Curry goes, good for Caden Curry. Once again, it's not a guy that I, pinpointed or anybody pinpointed and said, hey, watch for Caden Curry this year. This guy's about to go off. But he's been fantastic. And you made the point as well. So much of that has to do with Matt Patricia and finding different ways to utilize him and giving him different looks and, allowing, I don't know if Caden Curry, just the edge rusher, just lining him up off the edge and bringing him out wide is the kind of guy that's, going to turn a lot of heads, every week, but, finding different ways to utilize him right now is certainly a big part of the start he's gotten off to.
Smart player, man. Always in the right spot. And effort, you're not going to find anybody out there that beats him in effort. Like he's just constantly all the way through the whistle every time.
And that's the way he's always been, even in the flashes, when we got to see him at times. Obviously, this is his first year with this big of a role, but we've seen him in a, contributing role before. And the one thing that always popped off to you was that he was just a max effort guy. And, maybe not the most physically imposing guy, but you were going to get every bit that he had out of him. So, which is a good place to start. And obviously, that's not to say he didn't have size or talent. I'm not saying that at all, but certainly he was always going to be a max effort guy. That continues to be the case now.
Yeah, man, you certainly feel good for a dude like that. Year 4, last year, here we go. Obviously, Arvell Reese on that list of 5 guys who have just taken it up to the next level. I don't think we even need to talk about Arvell. I want to skip to one more on my list, unless you want to hit on Arvell. Luke Montgomery. Luke Montgomery, where we were at last year with Luke to where we are now, it's almost easy to forget that last year Luke was riding the pine at this point. Right now, he's playing like a first-team All-Big Ten guard with attitude, pancaking dudes in the Texas game and just loving life in there. And it is so exciting to see. I think that kind of thing is infectious in an offensive line. He's a leader. I love it. So big time stock up on Luke Montgomery.
Yeah. Going back to last year, and I don't know if it was on your show or somebody else's show, we're just talking in conversation, but it was in the spring talking about the outlook of Ohio State, and the offensive line was a big question, obviously, last spring going into that to that season. And I made the comment then that if Ohio State's going to have any chance to go, be a better than average offensive line, Luke Montgomery, it's time to step up and go. Like he's all the lamenting we did about their recruiting, Luke Montgomery was a hit, and they needed him to go be a hit on the field. And it didn't materialize like that, obviously. But by the end of the year, you start to see the hit that he was, on the recruiting trail. And now he's really just coming into his own now. Now he's just he looks like a monster out there. You can see just the leadership growth that he's had as well, in addition to the physical growth and just playing the position. He looks like he's kind of developing into the total package now, which is a really good development for Ohio State, obviously. And I think we knew that left side of the offensive line was going to be really good with Austin and Luke, then Carson as well. But that seems like it's going to be well, look, I said that I thought Ohio State's offensive line would be a top 5, top 10 unit in the country right now. Whether it is or isn't, I don't know. Again, there's still, we haven't seen enough to really determine that. But if it's going to be because Luke Montgomery took another step forward into becoming I hate to use the All-American word again, but, just that kind of player on
Yeah.
the left side, in addition to what we knew Austin was going to be, because he's going to be solid pretty much everywhere you put him. And then Carson Hinsman taking another step as well. And then we'll see what happens with the right side. But, if this is what they're going to get out of Luke, then it's a good place to start for sure.